Hello, everybody, and welcome to another day at Live at the Waterhole. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and I'm going to be your host for the next couple of hours. So get excited. Hopefully, we're going to see lots of crazy, wild, wonderful wildlife. If this is your first time joining, this is in fact a live and interactive safari. Except we won't be driving around, we'll just be sitting and watching a variety of cameras distributed across Africa. And if you're wondering, Taylor, if it's live, can we talk to you? Yes, of course you can. And I love it when you talk to me because it gets quite lonely sometimes. And I'm sure you're all very excited because it's Friday and it's the weekend. So, in order to chat to me, you can communicate to us. Well, you don't actually speak directly to me. You speak to a group of wonderful people based in Johannesburg that are directing the show. So you can head over to the WildEarth website and use the question box there. You can use Twitter or X. Just remember to hashtag WildEarth. And then, of course, for the first bit of the show, it is being broadcasted on YouTube. You're welcome to comment away on the live chat. So I'll just give it a minute or two and see who will be joining today. Tell me where you're from. Say hello. Maybe you've got any questions for me already. I know we always tend to have interesting conversations, which is always good. So I'll just wait for you. I just need one person to tell me hello, and then I'll continue chatting. Oh, there we go. A couple of you have already jumped on board. Wonderful, wonderful. Bilbo Baggins. You said looking forward to a live at the Waterhole today. Hello. Thank you so much. So am I. It's nice and hot for the most part, but overcast, as you can kind of see. So I expect that we're going to have lots of animals visiting the Waterhole. And then, Catherine, good morning to you. You said hello, Taylor and Tucker, and that it's great to have us on board again. Tucker, my dog, in case you were wondering, he features on the show too. Not that he'll be interacting with zebra and elephants that we can see right now, uh, but I too live in a wildlife estate, so there's normally lots and lots of action and drama happening just in my house, which you all unintentionally become a part of. So I'm sure he'll feature at some point. But yeah, it's great to have you. Thank you so much again, Catherine, for all your questions. So if you're wondering where on earth is this camera, this is in South Africa, in the sort of northwestern parts of the country. And we're on a game reserve called Madikwe. And this particular waterhole is right outside Jamala Lodge. Now, Madikwe Game Reserve, I know a few of you have heard this already, it's a enormous private reserve, a protected wilderness area. It's one of the biggest in the country. It's about 75,000 hectares. There's a fence that goes all the way around just to protect wildlife. And there are plans, hopefully, in the future to connect other wilderness areas to this point, because Botswana is literally just a stone throw north of the reserve, which is exciting. And it's always great to create these monster transfrontier parks that typically connect over more than one country. It's great opening up natural corridors, well, reopening up natural corridors for animals to move around, which is very important for genetic diversity. And this area in particular gets quite arid during the dry season. It's our winter during the middle of the year. So it'd be nice for them to have the option at some point to eventually move and find better grazing or browsing facility. But it doesn't look like there's much wind at all. The water hole is like glass today, creating a beautiful reflection of the elephant bull on the right hand side. And of course, the zebras have now moved off, and a couple of impala are coming down. So they'll have a drink at some point too. Let's have a closer look at this elephant, though. Let's see what he's getting up to. But while we wait for the camera to do its thing, let's go and see what the weather is like at the different locations. Looks like a spot of rain here and there. Actually, I want to just double check. Are we expecting rain today? No, no rain forecasted for the greater Hoedspruit area. But the clouds are building as if there is something on its way. But it is rainy season, so hopefully we do get more rain. So the elephant bulls now quenched his thirst, didn't really splash much water over his body, and is using this log to have a scratch. I bet that the log could tell a lot of stories. And one day I hope to visit Madikwe, where I'll be able to actually go and inspect that log for myself. It must be so smooth. With the animals constantly rubbing up against it, it polishes the wood quite nicely. Patisse, hello. You said good day, Taylor from Australia. How you doing? I'm going to start hearing an Australian accent again soon as my mom's moving back from Australia back to South Africa. She's got a heavy Aussie accent. And then Shiv, you said always entertainment with educational and equal measures with me. Thank you so much. It's very kind of you to say, Shiv. Yeah, I'm hoping it's better than, when was it? Not yesterday, the day before, Wednesday. We had quite a quiet show. You were stuck with me for over 4 hours, and I was really sad about that. But I think we're off to a good start. There we go. You can see the elephant now depositing fresh mud onto the log, and you can actually see how it's smoothed out quite a bit. This might have been a leadwood tree. I'm just looking at the fissures in the bark, or what little bit I can still see. There's quite a few leadwoods around. It might be another tree too. But anyways, regardless, it's a really tough wood that's not going anywhere. And that's actually something to consider. If perhaps you are based in a reserve that has got a fence around it, like Madikwe does. And one of the roles, as we all know, is you do have to play the role of the creator to make sure that animals have got enough water. That's super important, as well as feeding opportunities. But with water holes, if you do create one, because this is a man-made water hole here, and it's quite sparse and there's nothing around, go and collect some big logs, like something like this, and deposit them around the water hole, even big rocks. It will just allow for animals to spend more time at the water hole. Scratching like this is one of their favorite things to do, as you can kind of see. It also might increase bird life and a host of other animals. Where water hole can be quite barren, of course, it's circumstantial. You could end up losing out on diversity of wildlife. Even planting some lilies, water lilies are good, of course, okay, I'll get into that now, for purification of water, even some reeds. But as you can imagine, this water hole will be very difficult to put something like lilies or lotuses into the water itself. Any aquatic plants that float in the middle of water probably wouldn't survive. Sometimes we see this water hole filled with elephants and buffalo and everything else in between. It wouldn't stand a chance. Viper, you've also just jumped on. You said good morning from the UK, and it is a beautiful day at the Waterhole. You are quite right. It really is. It's actually been quite pleasant. We haven't had over the top hot days. Uh, Everything, our summers, well, at least the last two, this summer and the previous summer, have been very mild. Well, I just remember, gosh, 2017, 18, 19, 2020, 2021, where the temperatures are exceptional. I'm not complaining, of course. It's hot enough as is, and the humidity is quite high at the moment. So if we were having temperatures that are exceeding 38 degrees Celsius every day, so over 100 degrees Fahrenheit with high humidity, I think everybody would just stay inside and not want to go out and appreciate all this wildlife that we have on our doorstep.
Our UK family is important to us. WildEarth is making your viewing experience more convenient with a time shift that will see a delayed start. Our sunrise safari will now be broadcast at UK sunrise times. Don't miss a moment of your favorite shows. To watch it live, go to the WildEarth app or website.
Incredible.
Wild Earth, connecting you to nature.
Isn't it just crazy how the elephants come out of nowhere? I absolutely love it. I really, I think that this is one of my, not I think, I know it's one of my favorite water holes ever. And if I were going to go and stay at Madikwe, I think I'd have a look at Jamala. So, for those of you that haven't seen when the camera accidentally takes over, because it does this thing where it just has a mind of its own, and then occasionally it swings all the way around, you get a quick glimpse of the lodge. But there's a beautiful wooden deck with a pool that you can sit on, and it's right here. I don't know the distance from the deck to the dam, but I can't imagine it's more than 50 meters. It's probably maybe a little bit less than that. It's absolutely spectacular. But here we've got, looks like two different breeding herds of elephants. They're not quite interacting with one another, kind of giving each other a bit of space. They might join up and say hello at some point. And it's always so surprising because we look at elephants and how intelligent they are, and they are really social with one another. That doesn't mean that they're going to be social with other herds of elephants. This is kind of a misconception. So you'll see if they do meet up, I think it's two different breeding herds. They might say hello and go on. It's sometimes herds will really just bypass one another. I've even seen it where there's been breeding herds down at a waterhole, and one herd will actually hang back completely until a herd or two moves off, and then they'll come down, almost as if to not cause any conflict with there being too many elephants in one place at one time. Of course, you have to kind of put your differences behind you, though. Let's see what happens here. I could also, of course, be mistaken, and this could, in fact, be one herd. There are so many elephants in Madikwe. It's always a little bit tricky to tell. And the herds sort of range in size. Sometimes you can see 5 individuals together, and other times you can see 40 elephants together, all part of one herd. Marty M, you've said you were viewing the waterhole camera at Tembe Elephant Park and you noticed that the elephants are pulling up the water lines. And you've asked, is that a common occurrence or is it a learned behavior in that area? So it's a combination of the two. And in fact, elephants will pull up water lines wherever. So elephants have a phenomenal sense of smell, and they are able to smell water from quite a distance away. And because we know that elephants are so particular about what kind of water they drink, if there is the opportunity, right? Sometimes they can't afford to be fussy, but they will choose the freshest water, and they know that the water coming out of the pipes is more fresh than, for example, what they're drinking currently. And that's why we see them going to the left-hand side where the small group of elephants is on the left. That's where the water pipe is. So if those pipes are not dug deep enough into the ground, it's so easy for elephants to lift them up. In fact, I can't tell you how many reserves I've been on where I've been asked, or myself and other guides have been asked to go out and please find out where the elephants have broken the water pipes. And they don't always do it in the same place. So that can be quite a fun experience too. And then there was one reserve that I did some work at, and I think it must have been about every 150 meters. They dug the water line really deep into the ground, and then they'd have these sort of concrete blocks where it'd have a sort of like a cover on a manhole, so really heavy. I think it's steel. I actually don't know what metal they use, but and they'd have one of those on top, and not anything that you can put hook your hand under and pull it up. You kind of had to use a crowbar to lift it out of its fitting, and it was unbelievable. There's this one huge elephant bull, and he'd worked out how to lift them up. He'd step on the one side, and eventually, obviously, elephants weigh tons and tons. Eventually, this sort of manhole cover would lift up, and then he'd use his trunk and pull it over, and then he'd actually just break the pipe right at the connection, which, to be honest, that was amazing. Fairly easy to fix, right? Rather than having to dig down into the ground. So they are quite sneaky, and it's a difficult thing. And yes, once elephants learn how to do it, they do start to do it regularly, because why not? Sometimes I think they just do it out of spite, though, just for fun. And to be fair, if I was an elephant, I would do the same thing all the time. I'd just make sure I didn't get caught, though, and be labeled as the water pipe breaker. So perhaps at Tembe, they need to reconsider, the method that they're using, and perhaps dig down even deeper. But what will also happen is that the pipe that leads into, say, a water hole, if it is exposed, the elephants will they start feeling around it, and eventually, with the water constantly sloshing up against the sides, the mixture of the elephants moving around, those embankments wear away, and then more and more of the pipe gets exposed. So, and then naturally, why would you not fiddle with it? I know I do that all the time. If I find something, whether it's a loose hem, piece of cotton that I can fiddle. I think everybody's been guilty of fiddling with scabs before and ripping them off, right? There's not, I don't think there's one person in the world can say that they haven't done that. So elephants will do the same thing, right? They'll just fiddle going, oh, this is quite nice, and entertain themselves for a little bit and just keep pulling it and pulling it and pulling it. I often carry a big knife with me, and especially a lot of the reserves that once were farmland that have now been restored back to their natural environment. And a lot of the water pipes, are old farmlands, they haven't been dug down very deep, and in fact, they're not even in use anymore. You spend your life cutting them in half because you'll just come across a road and there's this huge black water pipe or blue water pipe, whatever color it is, stretched across the road, and it's kind of like an eyesore. I mean, everyone gets excited and they think it's a snake at first, and you get a bit closer and realize what it is. And it's not nice to just leave that lying around. Of course, you can call the habitat management team or whatever, and they'll come and remove it. Sometimes I just like to do a bit of work while we're out. Most guides are equipped with a panga, a machete in their vehicles to trim some branches. So I used to have this really, really big knife that was perfect for cutting the plastic. Sometimes it's not always very thick either, so it's manageable. And then just chuck it in the back of the vehicle and get rid of it when you go get back to the lodge. Oh, this area is just looking so beautiful.
For those in the wet and cold this festive season, transport yourself to a warm and sunny Africa. With virtual safaris in real time, interact with African naturalists, connect with fellow nature lovers across the globe, fall in love with nature, and join the WildEarth family this festive season. WildEarth, connecting you to nature.
You can see some elephants on the left. What are you doing? Are you trying to pull out bits of grass or are you eating the soil? It's always tricky to see sometimes on the camera. I wish that you could all have a view of what I'm doing because I pretty much sit with my face so close to my computer screen. And quite often I find myself reaching for my binoculars, trying to get a closer view. Does anyone else do that? It's such a terrible bush habit. In fact, I've done it in shopping centers before. And once somebody said, "Oh, look at whatever they were talking about," and it was far away. So naturally, I didn't have my binoculars on me, but I did the motion, and I was like, "Oh no!" Also, if you did that in public in a shopping center, you'd probably be arrested. So thankfully, I didn't have my binoculars on me. I'm not one of those guides that carry them everywhere. That's actually always quite funny to see. There's a serious birder around. They don't even have to be a guide when they just have their binoculars attached to them all the time. It always makes me giggle. Looks like a couple of the bigger bulls are sort of sneaking in to this herd, coming to obviously see what the cows are up to. Look at that little one stretching its trunk out. Very curious with the bulls. And the cows are not really interested in anyone there and now sort of moving along. But it's great to see the size difference though between cows and bulls. Oh, son, you're just commenting as to how nice this is. Gina K, you're also on board today. Hello. And then Patches, you said right now you need a splash in a waterhole. I'll join you. We can hold hands and go together, preferably though when there's no other animals around and crocodiles. Potentially, I could be convinced. And then Honey Badger, you said good morning and that there are a lot of family groups today. They are. I think they're just going to be coming in and out for most of the morning. I'm quite curious about this cow that's the sort of smaller elephant in the middle. If I'm not mistaken, that's a cow. Just double check before I continue. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is a young bull. It's always tricky when you're looking front on. No. Is it a bull? Did I see the bits that make a bull a bull? And of course, you've got to stand behind another elephant. Typical. Yeah, never mind. That is a young bull. Looks like there's going to be a bit of commotion on the upper left-hand corner too, with the bull that's covered himself with grey dust. Oh, look, a slightly bigger bull heading over, maybe to sort things out. Let's see. Patisse, this is a very funny comment. You said that when you first started scuba diving, you would go to take your mask off to see the smaller stuff better, just like you would do with your glasses. Oh, goodness. Can you imagine? That's a bit of an oopsie to do that. It's very funny. I'm glad that I'm not alone, though, and also do silly things. This young elephant bull is so interesting, desperately trying to interact with the big boys, but they're not worried about him. They probably won't pay him any attention at all. Is there anything in particular that anyone is hoping to see today? Or are you just like me and we'll just take every minute as it goes? I'd like to maybe add a new bird to my list, even if it's one that I've seen before but just not on the show. So we'll probably do some birding. In an hour's time, the Africam cameras will join us too, and that'll give us access to some of my favorite birding spots. Keenan, you've asked how good is an elephant's sense of smell? Well, Keenan, it's not tactile communication, olfactory communication. So sense of smell is most likely the most important way for elephants to communicate with one another, to be able to find things, and to the point where they've got one of the best sense of smells of any animal. Of course, there are a couple others that have also got a great sense of smell. But just to give you an example, it's been said that elephants have around 2,000 receptors, olfactory receptors, whereas dogs have just over 800. And we know that dogs are being used all over the world, right? As man trackers to uh, smell out bombs, ammunition, uh, rhino horns, pangolin scales. You kind of name it, anything. And the elephant sense of smell is much better than that, and they're able to pick up scents and, for example, smell water from over 10 kilometers away. So it's quite a distance, of course. I always think it must be quite a difficult thing to be able to test, to do tests out in the field. But scientists have got it waxed, and I'm sure the information that we'll receive is going to get more and more accurate over the next couple of years. Everyone's just talking about how technology is going to do this huge jump in the next 10 years. I'm so excited what we're going to find out about wildlife. So pretty keen sense of smell. And I know that I've mentioned this before, but in Angola, where there was a civil war that only ended not too long ago, in fact, there's a lot of mines that are still left, and there's a big drive to try and restore these areas that were uh, disgraced by the war, and try and rehabilitate and restore them. So of course they used dogs to try and pick up the mines. They then started using elephants, and they found that they were actually better, more accurate at detecting areas where there were mines. But now they are mainly using the giant Gambian pouched rat, which I think is the most fascinating thing, and that is high up on my bucket list. I would love to go and meet with the conservation teams in Angola that are using these pouched rats and just see how they operate. I mean, that's just unbelievable. Again, if you haven't ever heard of that, please go Google it. Google it immediately. Giant pouched rats, or scent detection, giant pouched Gambian rats. And you'll see they wear little harnesses and everything. It's hysterical. It's just unbelievable. Who thought that, you know what, we're going to use these giant these things running around, that's what we're going to use to pick up mines? It's unbelievable. People are so creative. Well, elephants are going, I think, going to be coming up and down all day, so we'll come back to them. But let's head over to a different camera, and we're going to head into the Sabi Sand now. Well, this is a site that you're not going to very often see, and the reason why I say that is because look at the view we've got. Never heard of impala? This is at Juma Private Game Reserve, where the live safaris are conducted, sunrise and sunset safaris, and they're sleeping in the shade of a knobthorn. That's the tree that the camera is uh, attached to, and this is so wonderful. So impala, most widely distributed antelope in Africa, they are so successful. That's thanks to their varied diet, of course, and I just can't get over this. I don't think I've ever seen a scene like this, to be quite honest. This is probably my first time viewing above and just looking straight down onto impala while they sleep. The ones that are all sitting down in the group, those are all the lambs of varying ages. And this is quite typical. They form like a little creche. They keep each other company. The adults can do their thing. They're practicing rumination, so focusing on getting their digestion all sorted. And you can even see the little ones are chewing away now as they're not just drinking milk. They'll still be drinking milk, of course, normally for about 6 months, maybe even a little bit less than that, but they start ingesting vegetable matter quite early on in their diet. And the wind is picking up in the Sabi Sand. You can hear it. You can see the grass gusting. So much so that you can barely hear any of the birds, just the oxpeckers that are bounding from impala to impala. I mean, look at that one there on the bottom left. That's insane. Leah, you've said, ooh, it's nap time. It absolutely is nap time. Oh, this is amazing. This is such a great thing to be able to see. So it's a red-billed oxpecker, and it's just holding on now, clinging from the side of the impala's body. And then you can see how it kind of scissors through the hair, trying to get any ticks, any little mites, fleas, really any parasites that will be feeding on this impala. And even though we don't see big bulging ticks all the time, it doesn't mean that they are not there. A lot of them are small, still young, in fact, in their larval stages. But by doing this sort of scissoring motion, they're able to capture all of those little parasites. Oh, there we go, getting the top of the head.
We all know the struggle of finding the perfect gift. But what if you could give them an unforgettable experience? Something truly extraordinary. Introducing Nature Eye. Fly a real drone remotely at iconic locations, witnessing the beauty of nature like never before. Sign up to be an explorer and you could win one of these experiences yourself. Visit natureeye.com today.
Oh, there we go, Shiv. You've said that it's actually the best view of an oxpecker that you've ever seen. I completely agree. I mean, we sometimes are really lucky and we are close enough to the animals that even when once we've zoomed in, you can just about see the eyelashes, right, are on the oxpeckers, but never from above to really see how they work. I love that when they are moving, well, they're moving their beaks through the hair of the oxpeckers, that you can almost see that they leave like little lines, as if you were. Uh, as if you would see if you were to brush your dog or your cat or whatever pet it might be. That was quite cool. It's not something that I've ever noticed before, but definitely something you can see from this kind of angle. Cotswold Cobra, you've said, do oxpeckers remove the entire tick or do they leave the mouth parts behind? Well, obviously, if we get ticks on us, right, or we're pulling ticks off of our pets, our priority is to remove the tick in its entirety, and we are able to do so delicately. I don't think we always get it right. But with the oxpeckers, they're not worried about that at all. That's not a conscious thought. So I'm sure that a lot of the time, the tick mouth parts itself actually get left behind. Perhaps it's also dependent on the size of the tick itself. If it's really little, I think it's going to be impossible to pull those mouth parts off. It's like, for example, when I get covered in tick larvae, we call them pepper ticks. So if you ever hear anybody trying to convince you that pepper ticks are a separate species from some of the species of ticks we don't. They're from these. They are a lot of the time they're just kind of grouped a bunch of different tick species, but the babies essentially they're small. They look like tiny little freckles, and most of the time you don't even notice them. But where I'm going with that is that when I remove them, I'm sure their little mouth parts are left to me, because even though it looks like I've got rid of all of them, I'll still break out in tiny little bumps. So yeah, so it's like I said, it's not something that the oxpecker is really worried about at all. And these animals have built up a resistance to the diseases that ticks have. So one of the biggest diseases that ticks pass on to wildlife is what we call heart water. It's very similar to biliary. If you've heard of the word biliary, that's what we would normally use with domestic animals, horses and cats and dogs, that type of thing. So they've built up this resistance. So, in an area like, for example, the Eastern Cape, I'm just using that because I spent a lot of time there. There's certain animals that are brought in from areas where there's not a high presence of heart water, and then that can kill them pretty easy. But these guys, not really anything that they need to worry about, unless they were sick or injured. Then maybe something like that, but could eventually, really take over and end up killing them. Oh, and there we go. And I actually answered the question. Catherine, you're asking about diseases from ticks and any that could affect the impala. Like I said, not really at a healthy state. They should be okay. And it has been suggested that a healthy, fully grown impala has an average of about 5,000 ticks. Could be more, could be less. And that's a healthy individual. Isn't that crazy? Can you imagine being covered with 5,000 ticks? Madness. Joan, you've said that those birds would annoy you. Absolutely. I get itchy when I watch them work on animals, and especially not the impala. I'm like, why is my skin crawling? Um, so I think Joan, you and I, oh, sorry, Joanne. Joanne? Was it Joanne? My apologies if I got that wrong. Um, you and I would be elephants in that case. So the reason why you don't see oxpeckers on elephants, because they just don't tolerate them. Can you imagine an oxpecker landing on an elephant, trying to get inside their ears and, well, at least going closer towards their ear opening? I mean, they would just grab them with their trunk and toss them. Could be a great sport. Oh, there we go. Now we get to watch it again. Now you can see those little lines that I was talking about. I mean, it's not super obvious. You can see that the hair has been disturbed. and they just get used to it. It must be therapeutic because as they're working that beaker, they must be getting some back tickles, right? They don't seem to mind them too much when they're over their body. It's just when they get to the hard to reach places like around the ears, the nostrils, the nether regions. But I mean, you can see this ewe is actually being quite tolerant of the oxpecker doing its thing in and around her ear. And this is something that every equestrian knows, or anybody that works with the livestock of any kind. How many parasites and ticks specifically end up in the ears of animals? It was one of my least favorite things to do when I was an equestrian and I had horses. I did a lot of the grooming myself. I, of course, did have help because of going to school and all these types of things. But I'd always make sure, and I learned from a very young age because I think it's important that you learn how to do things yourself before you get lots and lots of help and fall into the trap of becoming lazy and spoilt and just having everybody else do it for you. But I used to have to stick my fingers into their ears, and you can imagine with all the ear wax and that type of thing, and you could pull out so many ticks, like so many. I can't remember what we used to put in their ears. It was like I don't know what it was, like a wax of some kind, and I think it would help suffocate those ticks. And then you'd go in and you'd scoop with your finger or a piece of gauze, and the amount of little ticks that came out there, it's revolting. You just think, how on earth? It can't be very comfortable and pleasant. So I would be one of the impala that would happily go, please clean my ears for me.
Welcome to Destination Safari, the WildEarth travel show that showcases luxurious safari lodges. Overlooking a river plain is the Hlorsi Game Lodge. Today we're going to explore this wonderful retreat, offering rich game viewing and luxurious accommodation for the whole family.
We'll be just having a quick scan around. More impala. There's so many impala that are gathered here today. This area around the dam is great for antelope. There's so much lush green grass for them to feast upon, and of course, nice shady trees. Canine Bill, you said rhinos tolerate oxpeckers and not elephants. Well, the main reason is because rhinos don't have trunks and they aren't able to grab the birds. So I forgot who I was speaking to. It was either Paul or BK, and they said while they were at Pridelands, this was a little while ago, they did watch an elephant. No, that's the wrong way around. An elephant would definitely not land upon an oxpecker, not by choice, but an oxpecker land on an elephant and it kind of shoot it away with its trunk. Now, I've never seen that before, but I mean, I can't imagine why. Those here learned behavior, not to go onto the elephants. Maybe they all learned the hard way when they were younger. It wouldn't surprise me. So that's just it. I mean, you've seen how displeased the rhinos get again. They go literally, because they've got those big funnel-shaped ears, they go right down inside and they shake their heads, and that's the best that they can do. I mean, Granny actually said, oh, what a lovely sighting. It is. The impala are so restful. It's nice to see a big impala ram not chasing other impalas around. You see there, he shook his body, he shook his head and said to the oxpecker, get out of here. Not welcome today. I wonder if we'll see any yellow-billed oxpeckers. I don't typically see them on impala, but I have noticed in the Sabi sand, and especially at Djuma, I'm seeing more and more yellow-billed oxpeckers on different mammal species, which is great. Typically, we'd see them confined to buffalo herds, but I'm starting to see them quite regularly on giraffe. I saw one the other day while I was at Djuma, very briefly though, on a kudu. So it's great to know that their populations are coming back and are nice and strong. You can hear that rasping call of an oxpecker. If you do spend a lot of time in the bush or a budding guide or naturalist, I highly recommend learning this call. It's a very important one, especially if you're going to be spending time on foot. To alert you of mammal's presence, essentially. And sometimes, more likely than not, it'll be a herd of antelope. However, sleeping rhino, anything like that, or a buffalo in a wallow of mud, could end up saving your life. There's a virtual starling also just moving in between the impala, just catching any little insects that will be around. And you can hear them. Plenty of grasshoppers and things making all sorts of noise. So, Tracy, you've asked, are there any major differences between red and yellow-billed oxpeckers? There are. I suppose it can be confused at quick glance, just because they are quite similar in coloration. When they're sitting together, it makes it a bit easier. You'll notice that the yellow-billed oxpecker is bigger, it's a lot chunkier, including the beak is a lot more heavy set. The red-billed oxpecker, as the name suggests, has a red bill from the base to the tip. And then with a yellow-billed oxpecker, it's slightly different. So they've got a fair amount of yellow from the base of their bill, and then the tip of their bill has got a bit of red on it. And then with the red-billed oxpecker, it's got a yellow eye wattle, and it is the opposite in a yellow-billed oxpecker. It's got a red eye ring, um, or wattle, if you will. So those will be the most obvious differences. And then the calls, of course, they are similar, but at slightly different pitches too. It takes a bit of practice. You just kind of got to listen to the calls repetitively, and then you'll be able to tell the difference. It does take a little bit of practice. Yeah, but the impala, all looking for shady trees to stand under. Okay, well, that was quite a nice view of the impala. Always good. We'll keep an eye out and see what else comes down to Gowrie Dam, but let's go back to Jamala. Also, can you imagine being an oxpecker sitting on an elephant while it's trying to have a mud bath and just being completely saturated with mud? I don't think it would be a great experience. Occasionally, you see that with buffalo and rhinos when they flick their tails and the mud sort of flicks up onto their bodies, and oxpeckers are not particularly impressed by that. It always makes me chuckle. It's as if they do it on purpose. I'd probably do the same thing. And this bull's just going to spend a bit of time in the water, cooling himself down, and just relaxing, really. It's hard not to relax when you're around water, unless you can't swim or have phobia, of course. You're not going to enjoy it very much. I have yet to see an elephant, though, not to say it doesn't exist, that doesn't enjoy being in the water. And in my opinion, elephants are the happiest when they can swim and splash around. If it wasn't for the elephant on the left-hand side moving, you'd probably think that this feed is frozen. The elephant on the right is really just having a great time. Have you ever just sat on the edge of a pool with your feet dangling in it? You kind of get mesmerized by the ripples and the reflections on the water. I imagine that that's what they must be doing. Just kind of peaceful, maybe having a moment where their mind is quiet. For me, I know that that's hard to come by. Unless I'm watching ants and termites work, or a beetle or a spider, then I can switch my brain off, but I don't think that elephants necessarily do that. Then, Shiv, you've said when an elephant is using its trunk to drink, is it still able to smell? I don't think so. I don't think that the scents are able then to pass through the various chemical receptors, if I'm not mistaken. I will have to research that. What I'll need to actually do is just find a diagram where it shows the olfactory system and where it is positioned. Perhaps I'm just trying to think. I'm going to just try something. I don't know. Can we do that? I don't think when our nose is blocked, we can't smell anything. So I'm assuming it must be the same thing. Hmm. I don't know. Let's go with that. Let's go with it. Let's go with no. If somebody finds out something different, though, please let me know. I had to think about that one for a second. You won't believe what I did, Shiv, though. I blocked my nose with my fingers and then I inhaled deeply and tried to taste the air that way. Please tell me, did somebody else do that too? Or is it just me that's completely ridiculous? It's probably just me. So, just going back to the topic of fresh water, if you haven't seen it and this is your first time watching, this is where the elephants love to stand, especially when the water subsides. And there is a pipe that's dug deep into the ground, and it will be linked to a borehole. So, kind of like an underground well. And then that water is then pumped in here only when it needs to. The rain is doing a lot of the work at the moment. I just had a quick look at the YouTube chat and I can't stop laughing. Marty M, going back to we were talking about elephants and their sense of smell, and then I obviously brought up the conversation about the Gambian pouched rats. And you Googled them and you said that, I think I have to share this with you because it's very funny. You said, wow, those rats are bigger than Paris Hilton's purse dog. I concur, they are. They're really, really big. That is very funny. I will never forget that. Thank you very much, Marty. Ingrained in my brain forever.
A lot goes on behind the scenes of a safari. Sign up to be an explorer and get exclusive access to Behind the Safari.
Sit back, relax, and take a deep breath.
Learn more about the WildEarth team.
I would not normally keep it on the dashboard, but I'm going to show it to you there.
Come along for the surprises and chaos. Download the WildEarth app today. WildEarth, connecting with nature.
So the bulls and some cows look like they're all gathering. And they're fiddling on the ground. Like I said, we see a lot of elephants and other animals feeding in this area, but not just on vegetation. Sometimes I'll collect trunkfuls of soil and ingest it, which I think is what maybe is going on now. This area is high in minerals. Now, I'm not sure if it's because it's a depression, and then when there's lots of rain, some of the topsoil, which does contain a lot of minerals, then washes down into the lower lying areas, creating almost like what we'd call like a salt lick. And then you get lots of phosphorus, maybe calcium, sodium. But they do love it here, especially in dry season. We see all the different animals, zebras, warthogs, impala, everything gathering. LG7, thank you so much. Always blessing me with compliments. You've said that my personality, along with my knowledge, always makes the show so interesting. That's very kind of you to say. I wish my personality was more consistent. Anyone else feel like that? Ah. But I obviously love talking about wildlife. It's my favorite thing in the whole wide world. I'd like to just host an insect show. How much fun would that be? I don't think I'd be able to say very much. I think insects, their lifestyle is so intricate, and we don't even quite understand what's going on with them. But that could be a lot of fun. I don't know how it would work. But anyways, if anyone's got ideas, let me know. And Shiv, you said that you said that's why I'm here. I must do the smelling research. Ah, I'm almost certain that elephants can't smell when they've got a trunk full of water. I highly doubt that they'd be able to. And then Canine Girl, you're just complimenting the beautiful views at Jamala. It is, especially at this time of the year. Although winter's also really pretty because almost every day is blue skies and crystal clear, no clouds. The last couple of years have been a bit different, but normally. And then you'll get those sort of autumn tones of sort of shades of all different hues of brown and yellow. But this time of the year is really stunning. It's a teeny tiny elephant amongst the legs of the adults. And I can definitely say that they are feasting on soil. I'm sure you noticed that just a moment ago, one of the elephant, there we go, that cow, she's sort of collecting as much of the soil as she can and then tossing it right back into her mouth. And as she sort of exhaled, there was quite a bit of dust. And this bull is just being an utter nuisance now. Why he needs to stand on top of her and her youngsters, not necessary at all. Yeah, she's just moving. She's like, we'll just go stand over here with these other boys then. Canon Girl, you suggested that we should have a show called The Wild Taylor and Tucker Show. A show. That would be a good one. There's so much adventure. There's all sorts of crazy things that go on in our life every single day. I have kept my front door closed today. It's not that hot. Well, it's not excruciatingly hot, so I don't need a breeze to come through. So I doubt we're going to have any warthog dramas. I have warthogs that illegally enter my house, no permission, as they come barging through, which is quite rude. Then we normally have lots of excitement on the Waterhole show. Bilbo Baggins, you're wondering how long does it take for a baby elephant to use its trunk properly? So it's always funny to watch young elephants, as you can just see the frustration of wanting to be able to do something and not really achieving it. And it's also a good way to age an elephant. As for those of you that don't know, tusk growth is hugely dependent on genetics. And it is said that normally tusks start to poke through at about 2 years old, just beneath the folds of skin where we're able to see them. Obviously, they're growing and are just hidden away. But again, that's not always the case. What happens if an elephant doesn't have any tusks? Because we see that quite often too. So I like to use the trunk and just see how long it is. Does it extend right down to the ground? That's also a nice way to age them. A baby elephant that's just a couple of days old with a trunk that touched the floor would be a disaster. They'd spend more time on their head than they would on their feet. So I'd say it's from about a year old. They have pretty good use of it. But of course, they wouldn't have had, sorry, is my terrible English, they would not have had enough time to develop all those muscles within their trunk. Because remember, the trunk is pretty much made up of cartilage and muscle. There's no bones in there at all. And it's going to take them a couple of years to be able to have the full strength. Of course, the older they get and the bigger they get, it's going to be more powerful. And they'll start to learn techniques. It's very similar. Again, I don't always like to anthropomorphize, but sometimes it's quite a nice way to understand it. It's just how we learn to use our hands when we're little. We figure out if we're left or right-handed. People might be ambidextrous, and you figure out little ways to do things. And not everybody ties their shoelaces the same way, for an example. So not every elephant might pull grass out of the ground the same way. Some might have certain techniques that they prefer to use that work better for them. So it takes a bit of time. And then, of course, not every animal develops at the same rate as one another. So you have to take that into consideration. It's always really difficult to give an exact answer. And I find not necessarily, I'm not necessarily talking about you, Bilbo Baggins. But it's something that I've noticed with guests over the years is that, I'll give an answer, but I normally try to give like an explanation about it. We turn it into a conversation, like what we're doing here. And sometimes people look at me and they go, we just want an answer. We want a yes or a no, or X amount of months or years or whatever the case is. And I'm like, but you can't though. And yeah, I just always find that funny. I was like, there's no exact answer for anything because everything develops slightly different at a different rate. So, anyways, we can obviously scientists and biologists have figured it out, but then even then, you'll see it's not always exactly. It's same thing with gestation periods, right? 9 months for humans, but sometimes babies come earlier, sometimes they come a bit later. Yeah. Anyways, I'm sure you get what I mean.
Do you yearn for a seamless and tranquil connection to nature? Download the WildEarth app and become an explorer to enjoy ad-free viewing. Stay tuned into your favorite shows and enjoy the sights and sounds of nature uninterrupted. Explorer subscriptions are available monthly, biannually, and yearly. Sign up today. WildEarth, connecting with nature.
Quite a large bull just interacting with everyone. It's just funny how no one drinks from the pipe and then one goes there and then everybody else has to join in too. I wouldn't say elephants are very good at sharing either. Going back to all the drama that typically happens in my household, thanks to all the wild animals. Sarah from the UK, you've mentioned that you live by the coast and you quite often have trouble with seagulls coming in if you leave the door open. They're just so intelligent. Animals are so much smarter than we think. I mean, they've learned not necessarily how to get inside because it's not like they're breaking in. They're just walking through or flying through an open window. Uh, and we leave so much food lying about. And so, yeah, it's a perfect opportunity. And animals learn behaviors very quickly. And then those behaviors are often passed down to their offspring. You can imagine that cycle kind of just continues and continues and continues. And a really good example of that is, and sometimes probably, I think it's most people know this, but there's a species of fish called a cleaning wrasse. And they're these tiny little fish that have symbiotic relationships with lots of different marine creatures. And it's almost, I suppose, what was that movie? Oh my goodness. What was that movie called with the fish that are underwater, not Finding Nemo? There was the other one, Working at the Car Wash. I can't remember what it is because I haven't seen it in so long. But anyways, uh, that movie where Shark Tale. There we go. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And there are cleaning stations, right? So the cleaning rats are responsible. They'll have eels going there and opening their mouths nice and wide and having debris picked out of their teeth or parasites removed from their body. Sharks are often visitors too. Octopus, I mean, you can name it, lots and lots of different species of fish. But then what quite often happens is maybe there's a wound, and we see this with oxpeckers too. And because they're feeding on parasites and sometimes even blood or skin cells, whatever it may be, they might peck more of the wound and realize, hang on, I'm actually getting more nutrients from this, or this is more of a fulfilling meal. So then they go out of their way to start doing that. And then that becomes a trait of that specific individual. And I've seen it happening, for example, where I live. And I'll use leopards as an example, seen as though we're out there on a safari currently and not under the ocean. Um, there's a female leopard where I live, and she is so smart. She's quite shy. You very rarely see her. They'll capture her often on camera traps. And what she has done is she's basically learned how easy it is to catch cats and dogs, pets, right? Not really a threat, quick and easy. And that's what she does. She's a specialist. Oh gosh, I can't English. Specialist at doing this, and she teaches all her offspring how to do this. Even though there's plenty of wild food available, warthog piglets. There's not many predators where I live, and that's what they become really good at. And that trait is now being passed on. You can see it with all of her offspring. Not all leopards do it, but she specifically teaches her young to do that. But anyways, we can go through many different examples like um, the what are they, vampire finches on the Galapagos Islands too. But anyways, we can get into that just now. It's just after 1, so it's about time that I introduce all the AfriCam cameras, which is very exciting. So we're going to head across to another one of them now.